I'm excited. Welcome back. My dear Stilton, did you like my little joke? The flight attendant had a banana peel peeking out of her pocket. I peered at her. There was something familiar about that long, slender snout and those crooked little paws. Could it be? This was no flight attendant. It was my old friend Hercule Poirot, the private detective. He often traveled undercover in order to keep his investigation secret. He truly was a master of disguise. Why, he'd even fooled me and we've been friends since kindergarten. Hercule whipped off his wig and false eyelashes. My dear Stilton, did you like my little joke? He asked, chuckling. I tried to be a good sport. Really, I did. But the memory of those restrooms was way too much for me. No, I shrieked. I didn't find it funny at all. But Hercule had already forgotten about the dirty tricks he'd played on me. That was just like him. You're going to the Olympics, right? He asked in a low voice. Why, yes, I stammered, surprised. Why do you ask? Before he answered, Hercule looked around to see if anyone was listening. I'm going to the Olympics too, he whispered. At last. Any idea why I'm going to the Olympics? I have a clue, I told him. And I'm not sure I want to know. Hercule's investigation often led him to danger. And as you may know, I'm a bit of a scaredy mouse. Well, I'm afraid I'm going to have to tell you anyway, he said. Look, something rotten is going on at the Olympic Games. I could really use your help, old friend. Sorry, but I can't help this time, Hercule. I said, I'm going to Athens to write a special report on the Olympics for the Rodents Gazette. My grandfather has me snout deep in the work all week long. Hercule didn't seem to have heard me. By the way, where's Thea? He asked. She couldn't come, unfortunately. Grandfather has her on another assignment. Hercule groaned loudly, so loudly that everyone on the plane turned to stare at him. What? My adorable Thea isn't here, he said, sobbing. I was very embarrassed. Shh, please lower your voice. Everybody is staring at us. And to think I was all set to propose to her in Athens, he lamented, holding his snout in his paws. I even bought her an engagement ring. I tried not to roll my eyes. You can ask her another time. Hercule dried his tears. I'll concentrate on my work. There's the ring. That's what I'll do. I'll try to distract myself by solving the Olympics mystery. That'll keep my mind off of Thea. Come on, Stilton. Don't be such a fly in the fondue. You know this case could give you some great headlines for your newspaper. I've already told you I am booked solid. I really can't help you, I protested. Hercule burst into tears again. Oh, don't start that again, I begged him. He kept on sobbing. Finally, I gave in. What else could I do? I'm a soft-hearted mouse. Okay, fine. Stop sniffling. What's the case about? Instantly, he was all smiles. Take a look at the list of the countries participating in the Olympics. Soon you'll understand. He glanced at his watch. I've got to go. I have to serve a cheese snack to the passengers. He paused for a moment as if he just had an idea. By the way, my dear Stilton, since you're so kind, would you help me? Should we keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. A little confession. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I have a confession to make, dear reader. I didn't want to let on in front of Hercule Poirot, but I was actually pretty intrigued by his case. As soon as I got off the plane, I hooked up my laptop and went online and checked out all the list of countries participating in the Olympics. But I didn't notice anything funny about it. Here we go. Here are all the countries participating. You might want to pause so you can see all of the countries. There are a lot. Oh, can you find the United States? Let's keep going. One more chapter. During ancient times. I had a zillion things to do for grandfather, but no trip to Athens would be complete without a little sightseeing. Athens is truly marvelous. Our first stop was to Parthenon, an ancient temple dedicated to the goddess Athena, the protector of the city. Holy cheese, it was spectacular. That night, I went out to dinner. My guidebook had lots of recommendations for restaurants that specialized in local cheese. The following morning, I went to Mouse TV's headquarters in Athens. Okay, we have a little bit of information we need to read. The Parthenon was built between 447 and 432 BC. Do you remember what BC means? Before Christ. On the Acropolis, which is an ancient Greek, means high city in Athens. It's one of the most famous monuments in the world. The temple's interior chamber has held a statue of Athena dressed in gold. There were marble sculptures outside the temple where they painted in very bright colors. Today, many of the columns and statues from the original Parthenon can be seen at the British Museum in London. So there it is. Something to look up on the internet. Okay, we have lots of information. The ancient Greeks. Around 1000 BC, independent city-states began to form in Greece. The term city-state is used to describe large cities and the villages that surrounded them. The most famous were the rival city-states of Athens and Sparta. In the 5th century BC, Greek city-states spread throughout the Mediterranean. Several of these city-states organized themselves into loose union. Their growing power led to war against the Persians, who lived in what was today the Middle East. The Greeks defeated the Persians at the battles of Marathon. We learned about that today. Salamis and Plataea. The military and political prestige of Athens grew during the age of Pericles, 450 to 429 BC, and rekindled the rivalry between Sparta and Athens. The Peloponnesian War, 431 to 404 BC, signaled the decline of Athens and the prominence of Sparta. With Philip II of Macedonia in charge, Greece lost its independence in 146 BC. It became a province of the Roman Empire. Okay, Spartan warriors underwent extremely rigorous military discipline and athletic training. At the age of 7, they began preparing themselves for all sorts of hardships. So this must be when we learned that some competed in armor. This must be why, because they trained that way. Homer was a blind poet who lived between 7th and 8th century BC. He's said to be the author of two very famous epic poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad recalls the war with Troy, a city-state in present-day Turkey. The Odyssey describes the adventures of the Greek warrior Ulysses on his voyage home to Ithaca from Troy. Education. In ancient Greece, education was reserved for only males. Began when a child was around 7 years old. Several subjects were taught: reading, writing, gymnastics, and music. Then boys learned how to recite poetry. Very little time was spent on math. Girls stayed home and were taught by their mothers to weave, cook, and sing. And we know that in the beginning, women did not participate in the Olympics. Food. Wheat and barley were the most cultivated grains in ancient Greece. They were used to make bread. Olive trees and grapevines were also important crops. Olive oil was used for cooking and also in medicine and cosmetics. Grapes were eaten as fruit or pressed to make wine. Cheese and fish were also staples of the Greek diet. Only chickens and pigs were raised for meat. Sheep and goats were used for their milk, wool, and skin. Cows and mules worked in the fields. Honey was used as a sweetener. Sugar had not yet been discovered. Here we go. The games in Olympia in honor of Zeus. The Greek city-states were always fighting amongst themselves. Only on special occasions were they at peace with one another. But every 4 years a truce was called for the athletic games in honor of the god Zeus in the city of Olympia. It was from this event that the modern-day Olympics takes its time. The game probably began around 776 BC. They were held every 4 years for approximately 1,200 years, until the Romans conquered Greece. One reason for the game's demise was that they were of pagan origin and the Roman Empire was slowly shifting towards Christianity. Who participated? City-states sent their best athletes to compete against one another in the games. However, only men were allowed to participate. Women were absolutely prohibited even to attend. Women could not officially participate in the games until many centuries later in the 1900s. How were the games announced? Games were announced by torchbearers. Athletes holding torches ran through Greece to announce the opening of the games. This was a tradition continues today, with the lighting of the Olympic flame at the beginning and end of each games. What games were played? Spectators enjoyed watching all the track and field competitions and the pentathlon, which included 5 events: running, long jump, discus, javelin, and wrestling. The chariot and horse races were also a crowd favorite. Fans particularly enjoyed combat sports. Not surprising, since the ancient gods were always fighting, especially a mixture of wrestling and boxing in which a little of everything was permitted. Punching, biting, slapping until one of the 2 athletes surrendered. The athletes rubbed their skin with olive oil to warm up their muscles, to make their bodies less slippery and to get stronger grip. They sprinkled sand on themselves. To the victor, the winner. A crown of olive leaves taken from trees that grew near the temple dedicated to Zeus was awarded to the winner of each competition. Can't wait to see what's next.